This nonsense here, and it is absolute nonsense. I mean, we've got Labor states around the country, the governors lived in Government House. And whatever attack this was on the constitutional monarchy or the role of the governor, whether it was a victory for Jack Lang, whether it was an attempt to dilute the power, they fundamentally made fools of themselves. And I have to say, I hope the coalition, the Barry O'Farrell coalition, gets their spine from somewhere else other than Kmart, because basically what's required is a very significant statement that says the governor will live in Government House. Yeah. Now, that's good news. The bad news is, my understanding is that there's a degree of equivocation that the governor will live in Government House if that's what she wants to do. To which I said, well, so who's going to be running the state? The government decides, surely. And there should be an immediate directive, doesn't matter who the governor is, that this is the official residence. As David said, built for that purpose, doesn't belong to the people, built for that purpose, and to save money and to restore the dignity to the office, we will give you a home appropriate to your status. Now, there's a lot of women in the audience here, so they'll understand what I'm about to say. We happen to have a female governor. Now, women being women, they have a sense of personal presentation. So if they're opening a fete at 10 o'clock in the morning, they don't want to be seen in the same gear when they address a luncheon at 12 o'clock. And they don't want to be seen in the same gear when they perhaps invest someone at 3 o'clock. And they don't want to be seen in the same gear when they address a dinner at 7 o'clock. So it could well be a female governor, they have it much more difficult than the blokes, this is a simple story, has got to make several changes during the course of the day. Now, what happens in the current setup, and I know it happens, because I've discussed this with the governor years ago, she jumps out of one set of gear and it lies on the floor and gets in another, races out, there's no staff. Staff are at Government House. Comes back and looks in the wardrobe to see what's next. Oh, I'll put that on, and she steps out of something else. This is ludicrous. The notion of the governor of this state walking out the front door each morning to the front lawn, picking up the paper and the bottle of milk along with everybody else. You can't. That is the dilution of status. That is where we're undermining the prestige of the office. We simply don't expect our governor, whomever he or she might be, to have to live in those circumstances. And David is quite right. We've now, by this decision, automatically denied a whole raft of people the opportunity to be Governor of New South Wales. Thank God there'll be a change of government, so these circumstances won't apply. But I happen to be of the view now, given the tremendous divide between city and country and the inability of so many people in the city, young people, to understand the importance of rural Australia to the wealth and productive capacity of the country, that it's time most probably that we took someone from the country and made them Governor of New South Wales. And there are many, many worthwhile people. Many worthwhile people, many outstanding candidates, but as David rightly said, well, where do they live? So does the state under this system buy another house? You know, it defies belief. It is ludicrous in its application and in its contemplation. And it always has been. I don't know how a person of Bob Carr's scholarship could be seized with such stupidity to argue basically that the reserve powers have been rendered asunder. I mean, it's not a matter of conjecture with constitutional lawyers, it's a matter of obvious proof that those constitutional reserve powers do exist. Mind you, they don't exist as some people wish they were, to dismiss governments who are dishonest, or governments who are stupid, or governments who are lazy, or governments who are inefficient. And in this last 4-year term, where people have rung up and said, well, why doesn't the governor get rid of the government and dismiss the government? Well, unfortunately, in government, there's no law against being dumb, stupid, incompetent, inefficient, or whatever. You've got to live with it. And you've got to make sure that you redress that imbalance by the way you vote the next time you're given a chance. But to see everyone in this room here, I mean, in all of these things, common sense should prevail, but common sense is not common. So all of you people know that when you go on holidays, and the big worry is, well, I lock up the house, and what's going to happen to it? And you come home and it's musty, or it needs a clean out, and the longer you leave it, the worse it gets. And so while all this has gone on, As you know, if you've been there, the government house has deteriorated. There's a whole heap of staff running around with nothing to do. There's the occasional investiture, there's a garden party here and there, and it's lent for other occasions. But you've got to live in these places to beneficially maintain them. And we now find, and according to the Auditor General, that to live outside is about $600,000 a year more. The governor is entitled to security, the governor is entitled to some support, a driver and all the rest of it, when all these other staff are lying idle. The staff want to serve the office. When you talk to them, they'll openly tell you. And people in the incumbents would prefer to be where they are. Poor old Nick is driven nuts in the current setup. And the notion of Mari Bashir going out, which she has to do, it might be nice for everyone to see the governor and say, well, that's the governor, isn't she a lovely person? But the notion of the governor walking into Woolworths and Kmart and everybody else to shop when she's just got so much to do, these are ludicrous notions if we want to invest that office with the authority and the dignity and the status that it deserves. So we've had 16 years of this rubbish, but at the same time, there are other challenges, aren't there, which exist, I think, in the attempt to restore the appropriate dignity and status to the office.